Thanks for joining us today, both on YouTube and through the podcast networks. I'm joined in studio this evening by registered retirement consultant Jason Pollock. Jason, how are you?
Great to be here as always.
Things are good?
Yes, things
Excellent.
are great.
Excellent. Hey, on today's show, we're going to talk about a really unique topic that I think is relevant to a lot of people these days, Jason. It's the family, the blended family, you know. So out there right now, we've got lots of folks that have gone through divorce and separation, and they've got their new partner and they're looking at their future. And I want to get into, you know, how a blended family requires its own financial game plan. And, you know, over the past few years, a number of things that I think are being missed by a number of advisors and overlooked is the planning around a second marriage and or a blended family. So in Canada right now, census reports tell us that, Jason, 1 in 8 families with children are those of a blended mix. So this really does require a game plan going forward. And here's some pretty interesting facts. In 2019, there was 57,000 divorces in Canada. In 2020, the COVID year, I guess because courts were closed down, there was about 43,000 divorces in this country. But on average, it's around 50 to 55,000 per year. 16% of divorces are to those that have 25 years of marriage or more, which is shocking. I guess after 25 years and the kids are long gone, it's time to move on. And 42% of all divorces, Jason, are those that have only been married between 10 to 24 years. So some staggering numbers, but as though we know it's happening more and more in this country.
Yeah, and you mentioned that the advisors sometimes miss it, but it's also the people involved. The husband and the wife, they often forget about things like this.
Absolutely. Well, it's amazing, right? We, you know, every now and then we have a client walk in and they've got a new partner and you're thinking, who's this new person? But, you know, again, that blended family does require a game plan. So this new cohort is a complete, I think, specialty planning segment. So what we've done here is there's a number of areas that I think if you're going through a blended family, you want to give consideration to. And there's 4 specific areas that I see as being important moving forward. One is the cohabitation of family finances. 2 is asset ownership and succession of assets. 3 would be things like wills and estate planning strategies, Jason. And 4 is going to be family harmony planning. And that may be the most challenging of all of them.
Yeah, for sure. When you talk about the cohabitation of family finances, the number one thing we say is sit down and have an open conversation. Yeah. Don't just leave it to the idea that, oh, we'll figure it out. Have that open, truthful, honest conversation. And it begins with at the end of the day, when Financial Planning 101, it begins with a budget. So have a look at your household budget, the allocation of all your expenses. It might make sense to take into account each individual take-home pay. You know, there might be a wide difference between the husband-wife, wife-husband. One might make more than the other. So it's really important to have a conversation about that and keep it as fair as possible so that each spouse so that both spouses are comfortable with everything.
Absolutely. And, you know, one of the things I'm finding is that, you know, if you look at an example, let's say husband makes $100,000 and wife makes $100,000 and they come into a relationship together and they both have a couple of kids coming into the cohab or into the family plan, the blended family. You know, it may not be where you each pay 50% of the expenses, because what if the husband is paying alimony and spousal support and child support to his ex-wife, but the female is receiving it? So it's really important that I think you look at total income coming in, because if the wife is making $100,000 at her job and getting $30,000 or $40,000 on top of that, but the husband's making $100,000 and giving up $30,000 or $40,000, you may want to look at a blended mix of that, and vice versa. If the husband makes more than the wife or the girlfriend, the partner, it's important that you're fair on the budget, you know, going forward. Yeah. The second issue here on the blended family game plan is ownership of assets, right? So, you know, do you keep things separate? Do you add your new spouse as beneficiary to your insurance policies? Do you add your new spouse as beneficiary to your pension? What if your new spouse passes away? What happens then? So I think it's really important to keep a separate financial silo, especially in the first 5 to 10 years. You know, get the relationship going well, And then hopefully what you can do is at some point down the road, you can make better decisions. But these are conversations and questions that I think sometimes it's best served by having a third party be involved in the conversation as opposed to sitting down over the kitchen table with your beloved and, kind of hammering out, financial, planning moving forward.
Yeah. Your point about keeping separate silos for the first 5 or 10 years, I think is key because, typically if something happens, it'll happen pretty fast and then they end up breaking up for the second time. And then you've got some real issues if you've blended all those assets and liabilities together. And
one of the key things too, Jason, on the asset side is that if you do want to leave your assets to your children, to your side of the bloodline, and your spouse wants to leave hers to her side, a great way to equalize, a wealth effect is by using life insurance. So what the husband could say is, hey, I'm going to leave my assets to my kids. You're going to leave your wealth to your kids. But what I'm going to do in the meantime to help protect you is I'm going to buy an insurance policy. Some term life insurance is a really easy solution. You buy a $500,000 term life policy. If something happens, then your new partner gets that payout as in lieu of maybe the assets going over to that side of the balance sheet.
Exactly. It's a great way to equalize the estate. And speaking of, equalizing the estates and looking at what happens when you hand it down to the kids, one of probably the biggest area of uncertainty is on the wills and estate planning side, on the legal side. There's so many issues that you have to deal with. Do you have new wills? How is the estate plan designed to protect each other? How is it going to hand down any of the assets to the children? You've got now blended families, so there's the husband or the wife's children on the other side. Is it wise to have cohabitation agreement if you're living together? How does your estate plan protect your children? There's all different kinds of questions that you need to at least address and at least have a conversation about.
And one of the key things too is that when a separation agreement doesn't nullify a will, right? So if you have a will with your previous spouse and in the will she gets all the assets and portion go to the kids. Just because you're separated, you're living apart, you're not legally divorced, it doesn't mean that that will is not going to be held up in court. So it's important that when you do go through a separation, if you're completely moving on to your next life, talk to your attorney, talk to your lawyer, get a new will drafted up. And then as you've got your new partner in play, maybe you get a will, obviously, and there's some asset movement there that the new spouse is going to get. So again, we think it's highly important that you sit down with your financial team, but also make sure you get some good legal advice and make sure you've got the plans properly in place. The fourth area of attention here, Jason, in the game plan to build a blended family is the harmony plan, right? So this is a difficult one, right? So you come from your world and she comes from her world, and your parents raised you a certain way and her parents raised her, and maybe that structure was kind of built into your genetic makeup. But, in the new plan, you've got people coming from different paths. So what happens with the kids and their friends coming over for dinner? What happens with allowances? What if one parent gives an allowance, one parent doesn't give an allowance? Obviously the kids find out, not a good thing. Talk about the allowances, homework time and chores, TV time, studying. Like it's a difficult time to blend a family together. So it's important that when you come together as a new unit, you come together as a cohesive unit together. And I think for what I would advise people to do is really sit down and think about all the ways you want to raise your kids equally moving forward, because things may be different than they have been in the past.
Exactly, and it's not always about the finances, right? Like you said, yes, with the chores, and do you give them some allowances and stuff like that? But what about things about homework and having friends over for dinner, that kind of thing? It's not always about finances. It's important to have that conversation, that open conversation early.
It's again, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to help a blended family. It's an incredible gift if you can take two separate entities, combine them into one. Mom and dad need to sit down, have a game plan, have a understanding of where you want to head. And again, it's my advice is that if you want to seek that advice, go out, talk to your financial advisors, talk to your wealth managers, and have them help create a blended family game plan. It may be the best investment you ever make in your second, your new stage in life, your transitional stage in life. So You know, Jason, we have a lot of people that we know that have gone through it. It's a difficult time when you go through it. But again, if you can find happiness a second time through, find happiness in a really structured way. And one of the things we've done in our practice is, knowing this is out there, we've actually created a program. It's called the Blended Family Financial Game Plan. And we talk about, you know, we do a discovery. We look at doing a budget for blended assets. We go through the asset side as well. We go through a risk management side, and we go through a blended estate side. So if anybody's out there and they want to get an opinion and have a conversation from a set of third-party people, we're more than happy to sit down and talk.
Sounds
so
great.
Yep, Jason, again, thanks again for coming in to the show this week.
Always
really
good.
appreciate it.
Always
and
good.
again, for anybody out there, please feel free to share the podcast.